The Football Kickoff.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Welcome along to the Football Kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports each weekend. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a comment on the live stream as well. I'm delighted to say we've got Keith Treacy and Colm Boohig here with me as well to look forward to this weekend's games. How are you getting on, lads?
How are you doing?
Hard to know where to start. I mean, in a way, this weekend pans out that you've got the two Premier League title contenders, FA Cup semi-final weekend next weekend, so both teams will want to keep going in the chase. Europe is kind of in around here, maybe possibly some squad rotations, and City and Arsenal both up against teams who are fighting for points at the wrong end of the table, and we know how tight things are at the bottom as well. And another game that I'm really interested in, Keith, you've got Aston Villa against Newcastle tomorrow. It's on BT Sport at 12:30. The two informed teams in the Premier League outside the top two. Villa looking to win 5 in a row for the first time this century. John Gregory was the manager when Villa last did 5 league wins in a row, and Newcastle have found form just at the right time as well. They've won their last 5 and are up to 3rd place. This, I think, is a pretty intriguing fixture.
Yeah, I do. I think this will be a great game. I don't want to put the commentator's course in it, but I think we'll get goals in this one. We should. Both teams in fantastic form, as you say. And to be fair, like, it's very hard to split the two managers. I'm obviously personally not a huge fan of Eddie Howe, but what he's done at Newcastle has been outstanding. The way he's gone about it since they lost the cup final to Manchester United, they've been pretty much flawless, absolutely excellent. And it's very easy to forget that when Unai Emery took Aston Villa over, they were only a point outside the relegation zone, and all of a sudden they're in 6th spot, might even get a European football next season. So two managers, two clubs that are on the up. And the one thing is, I actually still feel there's a little bit left in Aston Villa. I think they have a little bit more to go. And Newcastle, they're 10 points clear of 7th place, which is unbelievable. So they're guaranteed some sort of European football next season. And yeah, like, everybody's chipping in. Almiron, Wilson, Isak, 11, 10 and 8 goals. Trippier getting assists all the time from the right back position. Yeah, really enjoying what I'm seeing, and it's hard to split either manager for who's probably been best this season. Yeah,
I think Colin Arteta probably wins Manager of the Year if Arsenal go on to win the league, but these are probably the best two with the resources that they've had available. Like Aston Villa particularly, 17 games in a row now they've scored. Emery's really turned them around post-Gerrard.
Brilliant. And I think the one player that encapsulates the significant improvement is Ollie Watkins.
Yeah.
2 league goals prior to Unai Emery's arrival, 10 goals since, including 9 in his last 11. Keith, in your experience as a professional, what is it that you think that Emery's done differently for Watkins? Because obviously he always had this ability to score goals. So what's the difference?
I think sometimes you just get a manager who likes you. I don't know whether Unai is set down. Unai Emery, I know he didn't have the best time at Arsenal. I personally think he did okay at Arsenal, but when other clubs he's been at, he has a reputation within Europe as being a winner. And if a winner comes in the door like Unai and he pulls Ollie Watkins to one side and says, listen, you're my centre forward, you're going to play the bulk of the games, I'm putting my trust in you, all of a sudden you're 10 feet tall and you think that's it. And we've seen with Benny McCarthy and Marcus Rashford, it's just little tweaks, little mental tweaks within the game that can get somebody on the front foot, and Ollie Watkins really has been the difference at the minute. He needs a bit of help. Like Ollie Watkins he has 12 goals already. Danny Ings is still in the Aston Villa top goal scorers list. He hasn't been there since January, obviously. So if other people could start chipping in with Ollie Watkins, like I say, I think Villa have a little bit left in them. I don't think they're tapped out just yet. So Unai Emery's doing a fantastic job, and obviously it goes to show him what he's doing with Ollie Watkins.
It's hard to believe he was Newcastle's first choice as well, Unai Emery, when the Saudis came in, and it ended up with Eddie Howe. And on Newcastle too, they've only conceded 21 goals in the last 29 games. Eddie Howe's not exactly known for being a brilliant defensive coach. Like, what's he done differently at Newcastle that he did at, say, Bournemouth?
I think he bought good players. He bought very, very good players. I think Sven Botman is somebody who Newcastle fans will be getting a dear to. He had a huge reputation within Europe, and Newcastle went out and got him. I think beyond that, I think Dan Bourne, bringing him in from Brighton, 8 million, and he's playing left back. I know he's an inverted left back, but he's an outstanding defender. Really is. He's a Geordie. He was born up there. He wants to play for the club, and when you have people like that within the dressing room. And obviously Kieran Trippier as well. I think he came in for 12 million, which is a snippet for Atletico Madrid right back.
He was the first big signing. He almost set the tone as to what they wanted to do, getting an established England international. I'm sure he's key in the dressing room as well.
Yeah, and look at defensively, he's made some outstanding signings. I think Kieran Trippier, I played him. He's a brilliant right back. Diego Simeone helped him be a better defensive right back as well, and Nick Pope in goal as well. I think they've all just hit the ground running, and that's what you want with your signings.
When you look at this Newcastle side, right, they're obviously associated with having limitless budget, but I don't think they have any world-class players. Maybe Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, Kieran Trippier on his day is an absolutely outstanding full-back, and they're third in the Premier League. Now, does that go to show that it's not been a great Premier League for consistent quality, or are they overachieving?
I think with some of the players within that team, like you look at the likes of Joe Linton's been fabulous, but on paper, if you were to replace him with somebody with a little bit more guile, a little bit more class, if you were to replace Longstaff with somebody with a little bit more guile and a bit more class, you're thinking Newcastle are a serious outfit at the minute. At this minute in time, with the personnel they have, they're slightly overachieving, but Eddie Howe has brought new life into Joe Linton. Almiron didn't look a player until Eddie Howe comes in the door, so he's improved players within him. He's bought one or two world class players. I think Sven Botman, myself personally, I think he will go on to prove himself as a world class centre half, and as you say, Kieran Trippier on his day is centre half, and I think Nick Pope is somebody who could be in that Newcastle goal for years to come and become a Newcastle legend as well.
Did you think Eddie Howe was this good a manager?
No, I didn't. I have to be honest. But look, I'm basing it on my time at Burnley. Eddie Howe was a young manager. I think he was in his early 30s when he got that job, so it was always going to be a huge ask for him. And look, personally, training sessions were good. The way he wanted us to play out was good. I just thought it was a little bit football. There was no plan B, and after 10 minutes, I remember we were playing Yeovil and they're booing because it's 0 all at half time and we're trying to play out from the back, and it just didn't seem to link up quite right. His philosophy and the crowd, how it was all linked up. But look, he's obviously proven himself that a bit of cash behind him and a bit of he hasn't just thrown cash at it. You can't say that, although he has spent over 200 million, 12 million on Trippier, 8 million on Dan Burn. He spent it wisely as well. I know Bruno Guimaraes was a little bit more sturdy, and that's so was Botman, but great signings and all hit the ground running.
Given, like, even Thomas' philosophy from the very start there, he could possibly get good technical players this summer, because in a way the next month is really important for Newcastle. They finish inside the top 4. The money that comes from financial fair play from the Champions League is really helpful. I think maybe that opens the purse strings a little bit, and for players you're more attractive if you're playing in the Champions League as well. He gets good players in. Is he the type of manager who can mould good players into a really good team here?
I think so, yeah. I think we've seen that. Like, if we go back to the likes of Almiron again, Almiron's obviously a very good player. He wouldn't be in the Premier League if he wasn't. But Eddie Howe has brought him to that next level where he's scoring goals. He has that. He's a very good presser as well. Within the press, he's very good at jumping out and forcing the ball. So look, Eddie Howe can improve players. I think the big thing is for Newcastle is that if they get Champions League football, all of a sudden there's going to be a transfer market open to them, which they'd never shopped in before. And I know people will say, but they have the million, so it's open. It's not. Players in general, top players I'm talking about, they don't want to just go and play for the club. They want to play for clubs in the Champions League. So,
well, if you've got the money and you don't have that status, you probably get the wrong type of player, because you get guys who are just going there for money.
Exactly, yes. So you want young, hungry, ambitious players who still want to prove themselves, want to play in the Champions League. You don't want, necessarily an older pro coming down in his trajectory. You want people going up in their trajectory. And their scouting system at the minute, like I say, all the signings have hit the ground running. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of transfers they bring in the summer.
The other thing, Colm, as well, we talked about Newcastle weeks ago struggling to score, and now Isak and Wilson have both hit form at the same time. Wilson was banging them in against Wolves a couple of weeks ago. Isak gets a goal last week, and probably that keeps pressure on each other, and it seems it's brought a bit of form out of both of them too.
Matt, you two boys said to me Isak doesn't score goals, and look at him now.
Fine.
No, he was all like, I think everyone knows he's a brilliant player, and I'm definitely surprised by how many goals he is scoring. Like, I thought he had a goal in him, but not to this level. And I think you're spot on. There's probably, and you probably tell us better than anyone, that there's nothing like a competitive spirit between two strikers, because the ego must be huge in both of them.
Yeah, well, I used to love watching it, because I would usually be out on the wing in these crossing and finishing sessions, and I'd be putting balls in, and if you put a little floaty one into the centre forward who's playing against the other centre forward, I had it with Danny Ings and Sam Vokes, were really, really like that with each other, but it pushes everybody on, because if I put a bad ball in for Vokes and he doesn't score, he's going to give me an earful. All of a sudden I'm on edge when I'm crossing, and it just breathes new life into the changing room, and that's what you want. And look, other than training with shin guards on, I think that's exactly what you need, just that competitive edge between strikers. It's exactly what you need in the dressing room.
When you're seeing those two strikers in training, would they be giving each other advice, or would they be keeping it to themselves? about how to finish better?
There'll be very little advice. There'll be an awful lot of, let's say, banter going on, people slagging each other. But it gets serious because we're all on the same team at the end of the day. In the dressing room, there would be quiet words. Like I would say to Vokesy, like, if whichever way I like to cross, go to the front post, go to the back post, it's easier for me to hit you there. There'll be little things within the dressing room, but on the training ground, it would be very, very competitive, and every man for himself, really.
Yeah. The other game tomorrow is on Sky Sports. It's the 5:30 kick-off, which is the champions Man City taking on Leicester. Leicester under Dean Smith after their change in management just over a few days ago, 8 days ago, when Brendan Rodgers left the club. Keith, on paper, this looks like one-sided. Man City take Bayern Munich to the cleaners during the week, have set that tie up very nicely for themselves. They've got players to come back in, maybe Riyad Mahrez, who was rested during the week. Yeah. He's got the luxury of the squad to rotate here as well. And you've got Erling Haaland just in absolutely ridiculous form. 45 goals in 39 games. Insane stuff.
Yeah, really, really insane stuff. And the one glimmer of hope I was going to give to Leicester fans was that maybe Manchester City and Pep will tinker a bit, because they obviously have Bayern Munich again next week. They're 3-0 up in that. I don't think... I think they'll be absolutely fine. I do think there'll be a bit of tinkering, but like you said, it'll be like some Mahrez, Foden and all coming into the team. It's not going to lessen them any to a huge degree. And the one thing about Erling Haaland, his assist for Bernardo Silva last week was unbelievable. I was screaming at the telly for him to shoot on that left foot of his 18 yards out. He just dinks it to the back post, and then Bernardo Silva comes in with a lovely little header. That sort of stuff, you know, from such... I don't want to call him selfish and single-minded, but that's what he is. He is selfish at times, but for him to see that he has the shot on and just think, no, there's somebody in a better position, I'll dink that across the box. It was brilliant stuff. And I think Manchester City have, they're blown everybody away. 27 goals in the last 7 games, 5 clean sheets, only conceded 2 goals in that time. You know, I'm an Arsenal fan and I'm quaking in my boots. I think they're just clicking into top gear and if they don't get the treble, I think they'll be very, very close to it. And I think the Premier League and the Champions League is what they really, really want, and I can see them going and getting both at least.
Leicester have gone 15 games without keeping a clean sheet. What are they saying in the dressing room regarding Erling Haaland before they go out? What are they?
Hope he's not playing, Colin.
Because you said yourself, Fernando Torres, and you had to be there when you played for Blackburn against Liverpool at Anfield when Torres is red hot form, and you were saying like 2 guys in the boys were terrified of him. Yeah. And you're talking Haaland is at a completely different level, even at peak Torres. Yeah. Like, what are they saying in the dressing room beyond the obvious of like, oh, we're terrified there?
I'm not too sure. I think Dean Smith goes in there. Obviously, it's his first game. I think he just sort of says, "Listen, lads, let's have a free hit here. Let's just go out, swing a few punches, and see where it lands us. If we get beat 2 or 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, so be it. But let's swing a few punches, because everybody expects them to be beat. I expect them to be beat actually quite handsomely. So why not go there? If they were to go and get a draw, stick around in the game." The one thing is, maybe Haaland doesn't play. Yeah. Then Julian Alvarez starts up front, a World Cup winner. So it just doesn't get any easier, and you don't see a route for Leicester to win the game. But I don't know what Dean Smith is saying to his centre halves. I really don't. Maybe you kick him, I kick him, everybody kick him. But
well, that's the thing. If you're John Terry now and the Leicester coaching staff, are you going into Dean Smith's ear and say, "Look, I think what you should do is man mark him or have 2 men on him"? Would you do that, or would you go just worry about the whole City team because there's so many different threats? You've got Jack Grealish and the form of his life.
You see, that's the problem. If you double up on Haaland, you're going to leave Grealish 1v1 or Riyad Mahrez on the other side 1v1, and then all of a sudden holes start to appear. I think you just have to take it, on a play-by-play basis. Whoever is most dangerous at the time, you go over and you just shepherd them into certain areas. And the one thing you can't let him do is build up his speed, because he can be 5-6 yards behind you, and then we've seen De Bruyne just play that ball in behind and he eats up the ground. So I think Leicester might play some sort of low block and try and frustrate City, keep them out. Maybe they're a bit leggy from midweek. Just keep in the game, Leicester, and see what happens, because they will have moments in time. Leicester are a Premier League team with good players on paper, so they will have moments in this game where they will have chances. So they need to be absolutely ruthless, hit the back of the net with what little chances they get, and somehow keep Manchester City out.
Have you ever had a game yourself where you're thinking about the opposition fullback 24 hours before, and then all you're thinking about is this player before you go onto the pitch?
Well, yeah, all the time. I did that in every game, but I seen a sports psychologist, and the first thing he was saying to me was, mentally and visualise the player you're up against, visualise yourself running past him, how you're going to go through him, what he's going to do, what you're going to do. So I would have little exercises like that on a Friday night, just visualising whoever I was up against. That was normal practice for me, really, but I would urge a lot of people to do it, because I think it helped me just visualising myself doing it the night before and then actually going and doing it the next day.
Yeah, because you could do the opposite, where you completely tune out and don't think about it at all till you go to the pitch. But it's interesting to have that approach, because either way with Haaland, he's going to be there. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There's no avoiding him.
Yeah, well, like I say, I just don't know. I think the Leicester centre halves, and they've been so poor defensively that, are they going to put a performance together all of a sudden and just keep Manchester City out? Or City going to be really poor? But if 80% Manchester City turn up and 100% Leicester, City still win the game.
Yeah. Maybe not for this fixture, but is this something Dean Smith can fix though? Maybe come in, strip it back to basics, try and make them difficult to beat over these last 8 games of the season. That's probably his primary goal, isn't it? Yeah,
look, staying in the Premier League is what he's been brought in to do. And like I say, on paper, Leicester have the players. The one big one for me is Maddison. If you get Maddison playing, if you get Maddison ticking, then I think Leicester will be okay. He can score goals, he can create goals, he can lift the crowd with his free kicks, his set pieces are unbelievable. But I just have a feeling his head's been turned.
Really?
At the start of the season, he was flirting with Newcastle a little bit. I think there's Arsenal rumours as well coming around now, and I'm not saying he's saying like, we're relegated, that's it. But it's very, very hard when the chips are down and you're thinking, we're going to get relegated, but in the back of your mind, your agent telling you, don't worry, City wants you, Newcastle wants you, Liverpool wants you.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to be in the trenches with your mates when you have that in the back of your head. So,
and he's wearing the armband as well. That's the worry.
I know it was just a bad back pass last week that gave away the goal. That game was on a knife edge, it really was. And then for a bad back pass, I just don't know. It is fixable, but it's a huge, huge job.
Yeah, especially the way things are looking towards the bottom of the table. And for you, Colm, City have been sloppy in some fixtures this year, but now at this point they've gone 10 games winning in all competitions consecutively. They're well set up for that game in Munich midweek. They got the FA Cup semi-final next week. This is proper business end of the season for City now. I don't think complacency comes in for them.
Not a chance. Not a chance. The treble is tantalising for them, like the first side in 21st century to do it, and I think they will. Like, I think this is the best I've seen City. Like, I think it was the 2017-18 side was probably the best Premier League team I'd ever seen when David Silva was running the show from deeper. But now they've just added that freak dimension up front. Like, it's a generational talent. Plus, Grealish is so much better. Ever since João Cancelo left, he seems to have the left-hand side to himself. And this idea of playing 4 defenders at the back and then going to a 3 and a 2, like, Pep's evolved again, and I just don't see. The reason I just think they're going to win the treble is I just don't see any side domestically or in Europe that are better than City. It's simple as that. And what do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think City are head and shoulders above anybody in Europe at the minute, but I just think they overthink it. They want to so much. Sometimes Pep can overthink it, and I think you're right with John Stones playing at right back going into the midfield. I do think he can do that a little bit better, but sometimes he does things like as a player. When he criticised Kyle Walker last week and said he's not educated enough, he hasn't got the educated movements to play in the midfield. Then why say that? Like,
something
he
in his
can
attitude.
say that.
Surely is it?
Yeah, but he's saying he's not educated enough. He's not smart enough to play in the midfield. Which, look, I played with Kyle, and Kyle wouldn't be, the smartest of footballers, but his pace gets him out of an awful lot of trouble. He's more than capable footballer. But I think if that is Pep's opinion, which far be it from me to question it, why say it in the media? Yeah. Say it to his face. I don't fancy you in the midfield, and you keep that in house. To criticise him in the media and say that, I just felt it a little bit needless, really. Still
a very tough side to draw in the Champions League as well. Like, Real Madrid will probably get through against Chelsea next week, and then you'd expect Real Madrid to be able to rest players because they know La Liga is finished, while City are going to be right in the middle of a title race and trying to win the Cup at the same time as well. I wonder if that's going to catch up slightly when they play Real Madrid again, or will maybe they be inspired by letting the tie slip last season?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, but like the only person to get in Man City's way is going to be Pep Guardiola himself. If he decides to do something like a jazz solo Rodri up front against Chelsea in the Champions League final 2021. But the Real Madrid conundrum is there, because they have that muscle memory of they're just so confident in every game because they know how to win games, and there's something about they don't really have a discernible, really attractive style of play. We won't be talking about this Real Madrid side in decades to come being like, oh my God, the football they played was sensational. They just have this calm composure and confidence about them that doesn't matter what you do to us. Like at Anfield, when Liverpool raced into a 2-0 lead, they're like, yeah, don't worry about it.
They're effective though. Like they went to the Nou Camp last week, won 4-0. They brushed Chelsea aside. Probably should have won by a few more midweek. And
I love
they're
that
a big
about
game
that
team.
Real Madrid team. People talk, break the lines, tactics, this, go through that, do that. Real Madrid just turned up and said, doesn't matter what you do, we're going to win the game of football. And I love that. It's just, we're going to win.
They're a perfect
Doesn't matter what you
representation of
do.
their manager.
I love
so
that
calm.
because you can get so bogged down in tactics and stuff, and he just turns up and is like, yeah, we're going to win. Doesn't matter what you do, we're going to win.
It's the football kick-off with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. We've been talking about Man City, one of the title contenders. What about the team that's at top of the table? Arsenal have got a London derby. They go to West Ham, 2 o'clock on Sky Sports on Sunday. It's also live here and Off the Ball with Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr. Keith, you were watching West Ham last night in the Conference League. I'm not sure these fixtures are all that helpful for West Ham, where points in the Premier League are more important. But a tricky little run now to go from playing Ghent on the Thursday into playing Arsenal, who've had a break now because they're out of Europe, in this London derby on Sunday afternoon. Yeah,
it's a huge couple of weeks for David Moyes. He's excuse me, obviously played Ghent last night, drew 1-1. Very, very underwhelming. West Ham weren't good at all. I know they made a couple of changes. Danny Ings came in up front, but just nowhere near good enough defensively. The way they pressed, it was so off. It was 2 or 3 yards off. It was really slow the way they moved the ball. Not enough goals in the team. But they've Ghent, Arsenal, then Ghent. If he was to lose against Arsenal, which I expect West Ham to do, and then somehow lose against Ghent, you fear for David Moyes, don't you? I know he survived the really horrific result.
Everyone after the 5 went in, we were thinking,
yeah, well, if he didn't get sacked after the Newcastle result, you're thinking maybe he's okay. But I think what's holding the West Ham fans at bay ever so slightly is the European, the Conference League. If they were to go and win that, which with the teams left in it, West Ham could easily go and do. They could win it, but I think Premier League is your bread and butter. If they would go and win that and get relegated, what's the point really? The squad is so stretched. They had to bring Creswell on, Antonio on last night. They're bringing the big boys off the bench to see out a draw against Ghent. So I have very, very little confidence in this West Ham team at the minute. I'm not sure if David Moyes will be there beyond the season. It just seems like it's been tapped out, like he's reached the pinnacle with West Ham. But can they go and get at it against Arsenal in the London derby? I'm not so sure. Arsenal look rested, haven't played during the week. Really, really good against Liverpool last weekend. I did the co-commentary on that. For the first 45 minutes, they were really good. Second 45, they worked hard. I know Liverpool went and got the draw, but Arsenal showed a bit of backbone that I liked, and a lot of teams would have lost that game in Anfield last week, and Arsenal didn't. So I give them a bit of props for that, and I expect them now to get back to normal and put West Ham to the sword.
Is that the difference with Arsenal this year? Because you think of some of these tight games. Now, a few weeks ago we were talking about the late goal against Bournemouth, the late goal against Manchester United earlier this season, that there's a bit of grit about Arsenal this year.
Yeah, there's a bit of grit, and like I say, losing becomes a habit very, very quickly. I think winning becomes a habit as well, and Arsenal don't have that losing feeling. I think it's 3 Premier League games they've lost so far this season. It's a great record. Just the front lads up front, you can see 1 or 2 goals in a game, and you can still think Martinelli, Saka, Xhaka, Odegaard, the goals they're scoring. Martinelli 14 goals already, yeah. Saka 12 and the other wing. And Odegaard in behind that with 10 goals. They've goals from all over the pitch. You go on, like we said, if we double up on Saka, double up on Martinelli, you've got Jesus through the middle, Odegaard as well, and Trossard has been an outstanding signing. And he was saying Arsenal have come out on the right side of a lot of things. The Bournemouth result, the Aston Villa result, the Trossard one. I know I've said it before, but they wanted Mudryk, didn't get Mudryk, and end up with Trossard, and you're thinking
happy accident, isn't it?
Yeah. Brilliant. Why they weren't going for Trossard in the first place is excellent. Look, Mudryk looks like an absolute player. He looks like he will be a good Premier League player, but Trossard, his assists, the way he glides on the ball, I think he's a little bit of stardust off the bench that Arsenal
also
needed. You're
buying a proven Premier League player, and you're a guy who's running up proven numbers at this stage for both Brighton and Arsenal. Yeah,
and the one thing with Trossard was it wasn't a once-off. In the Belgian team as well, he's an international Belgian player, and obviously the Belgian have great stock in the national team. So when Trossard is involved in that, you're thinking, okay, he plays well for Brighton, but can he do that in an elite club? Well, he's doing that in a very, very big country. So we always had an awful lot of trust in Trossard. Didn't expect him to hit the ground running like he did, even though it was Premier League. The Premier League, like I say, he's gone to an elite club in Arsenal now, but looks every bit the player we wanted him to be.
As an Arsenal supporter, what was your overriding emotion at full time last weekend at Anfield? considering the sequence of goals.
Yeah, I
stay neutral because you're on the radio. I would
I was trying. But Stephen Doyle was he's a Liverpool fan as well, I think. So it was a little bit tetchy between the two of us. It was like fan zone at times. But no, it was the one time Ramsdale made an awful lot of good saves. I think he made 2 one-on-one saves. Made a brilliant save. Salah got a deflected shot by Salah, and it was a world-class save. So I was happy to get the point. And again, it's probably looking at it from an Arsenal fan point of view. The backbone we showed. I think 9 out of 10 teams would have lost that game against Liverpool when they had their tails up and they're peppering the goal. Ramsdale's making saves. Arsenal just stayed in it, and I think that is that bit of difference, is the bit of grit and the bit of work rate and just getting sweat on the jersey and just not lying down when people expect them to, just going against the grain. And it's a great quality to have.
I think for Arsenal now, because their focus is so single-minded, it's get through every week. And just stay ahead of Man City has to be the plan. Yeah,
and like I said, when you come out of Europe, when Sporting beat them, you're thinking, oh, that's awful. But in the back of your head, you're thinking, this is a blessing in disguise. You know, like we're talking about with West Ham, going out of Europe could be a blessing in disguise. And if Arsenal do go on to win the Premier League, I think they will look at that and think that was a blessing in disguise to lose the European fixture.
4:30 on Sunday, we've also got on Sky Sports Nottingham Forest, who are in complete freefall at the moment against Manchester United. We also have live commentary here on OTB with Nathan Murphy returning alongside Kenny Cunningham for that one. Colm, I'll come to you first as the resident Manchester United fan here. I left the office last night with Manchester United 2-0 up. Probably should have been 4 or 5 up by half time. The 2 Sabitzer goals were incredible. Martial's little bit of skill before it. Bruno Fernandes passed for the second goal. United look really comfortable. Coco Lamela probably should have been sent off before half time. This tie is only going one way. Sevilla again are struggling in La Liga, would probably, despite their love for the Europa League, wouldn't mind going out. And then they conspire to get 2 own goals laid on. Then you see Martinez being lifted off the pitch by 2 of his international colleagues.
Very nice of him.
We don't know how long Rashford's going to be out for. That tie changed in about a 5-6 minute spell.
Will, 2 of the biggest freak goals you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, it's and that would only happen to Harry Maguire, by the way. That header was going out to the corner flag, like, and it hit him and went in. No, look, Will, I thought the same as you. After an hour, I said, I think I'm going to go to bed. I'll have the match on my phone, and I just put it down to the side as it approached 75, 80 minutes, and Malacia nearly made it 3, and I had it down to the side, and I was only listening to it. And then the commentary started rising when Malacia leaves the ball go inside. I just cannot believe this. 2-1, and this is potentially detrimental to the rest of United season, because not alone do they have to go next Thursday to the return leg. A couple of days later they have Brighton in the FA Cup semi-final. So you're looking at potentially 3 trophies to 1. And it goes to show the form of Manchester United since the League Cup final. And both those sides have gone completely the opposite way. And the worry from United's perspective is that they seem to have peaked late February. Now, I would say there's massive improvement between now and Ralph Ragnick's time, this time last season. But the culture of the last decade is still very apparent at the club. Very, very apparent. And they were freak goals nonetheless, but how United didn't see that game out just wouldn't have happened in a previous era. Just would not have happened.
Yeah, Martinez is a huge loss potentially. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. I think the feeling seemed to be, Keith, after the game, it's not his Achilles tendon, so possibly it's not a season ender. But if he is a few weeks out, he is so crucial to how they defend.
Yeah, he is. There was big question marks of him when he came in the door, mostly just because of his height playing at centre half, but he put them to bed very, very quickly, them worries. And you start looking at the United team, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, but it's telling me Garnacho, Rashford, Martinez, Varane won't play on the weekend. So if that's to be believed, the United squad all of a sudden is starting to look a little bit stretched. And Rashford, a lot of people are saying that he's papering over the cracks at United, that there is an awful lot of problems still there, and Rashford's goal is getting them out of trouble. I would go along with that to a certain degree. I do think United have improved. They've come on leaps and bounds under Ten Hag, but I still think they're a little bit off the likes of Manchester City and the Arsenals of this world. But look, I thought the gap was an awful lot bigger than it was. I think United have done well to bridge the gap. They're probably overachieving at this moment in time.
So?
But yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there's an awful lot better teams in the league than them. I think Arsenal are obviously better. City are better. I think Brighton are playing a better brand of football than them. I even think Brentford at certain times in within the league have been better than them. But look, they've got to where they got. The league doesn't lie. They deserve to be there. But I do think there's better footballing teams in the league than Manchester United. And like I say, with them injuries, Martinez and Rashford, the big ones, you're thinking every chance. And I actually think, I know this is probably a little bit mad, but I think Forest might get something out of this game. They're a completely different team at home. They pick up their majority of their points at home. They score the majority of their goals at home. Steve Cooper he'll know they're looking over their shoulder. They don't want to stay in that relegation zone. So I don't think it's exactly, sometimes when the big boys come to town for the so-called lesser teams, you're saying it's a free hit. I don't think Forest will be looking at that with this sort of...
Well, Forest at the Stadium Ground have been really sticky for the top teams in the league. They've all found it very difficult going there. So that's the thing. And you wonder how much do Manchester United change up for midweek as well. Because now, it's funny, if you finish 2-0, you're very comfortable going to Seville next week. I think Ten Hag probably has to have a bit of a think about what's going to happen next week now.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, he's not going to win the Premier League. It's all about where he's going to finish. So does he target the European competition and say, we have a chance of winning the trophy there, we'll go and win that? Possibly, which means he makes changes. He
wants to win the Brighton game of the FA Cup next week too.
Yeah, of course. So if he's going to make changes, and with the changes that are going to be enforced on him, obviously there's a gulf in class between Manchester United and Forest when both teams turn up and they're at 100%. But all of a sudden it's becoming a little bit of a leveler with United's players missing, and maybe Ten Hag going to tinker a little bit. Like I said, I think the City ground to be bouncing might just get something out of that Forest.
What do you think, Colm?
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about that.
You're pensive, I would say.
A bit worried, alright, yeah. I'd say United will win 2-1, but it won't be convincing. What do you make of Anthony Martial? I thought he was quite good against Sevilla when he dropped deeper. He was brilliant for the 2 goals. He has that skill in him.
Yeah, good ball through for Sabitzer. He is very, very frustrating, but I think a lot of it's down to his body language. I think for some reason he looks
misleading, is it?
Yeah, sometimes it can be a bit misleading. He loses the ball and he has that look of arrogance. I don't really care, but I think that's just how he plays, and I think people get really annoyed at him. But one thing for him is he needs to stay fit. He needs a couple of months where he's just playing week in, week out, and he's coming in, coming out, and doing okay, not disgracing himself, but needs a run of games, needs to be super, super fit and get a run of games under his belt.
Sorry, go on, Will.
No, I was just going to say, right, Monday night then, you've got a traditional game, I would say. Leeds against Liverpool, 8 p.m, Sky Sports. We were listening to John Giles last night, Keith. His worry about his old team Leeds, they're just shipping goals and they look like they're going to concede quite a bit. But when he talked about this game, he said the one benefit Leeds have, and it sounds exactly like what we just said about Nottingham Forest, at Ellen Road they're a different prospect to win on the road.
Yeah, and look, Ellen Road, it's one of them places you love to play there. As an opposition player, I loved playing there. I loved going to Ellen Road. The atmosphere will be absolutely bouncing. Liverpool away from home, it's making me leads towards Leeds, because Liverpool away from home this season have been nowhere near the Liverpool that we expect to see. But Javi Garcia, since he's gone in, it's been up and down and up and down. And after the 5-1 defeat to Crystal Palace, you're thinking, what's going to happen here? But they're obviously going to stick with him till the end of the season. And it's the home form of Leeds. If Leeds can somehow, I do actually give them a chance of getting something against Liverpool, because I think the game will go into Leeds' favour. Liverpool will keep the ball with the likes of Yonto, Bamford, Somerville, Addison, Harrison. Leeds have the players to go and hurt you on the counter-attack, hurt you from open play as well. So I do think Leeds will get on the score sheet. Liverpool will revert back to type after doing so well against Arsenal and Anfield last week. I think their away form will come and bite them on the arse, and Leeds will go and get something out of that.
Would you take Mo Salah off penalties?
Yes, I would.
I think you have to sometimes. I don't think a player's ever going to say, I don't want to take a penalty, especially somebody like Mo Salah. So sometimes you just have to take him out of the firing line for his own good.
Probably depends who's on the pitch though, isn't it? Like if you have Milner there, he's an elite penalty taker. I think Henderson's a pretty good penalty taker. Whether they're going to play or not is the question.
But is it a case of picking anybody else on the pitch and not destroy this guy's confidence if he misses again? Or do you think he's elite enough to be like, don't mind that?
I don't think Mo, that's what I say, Mo is obviously an elite footballer. He's not going to ever want to turn down the chance to hit the back of the net. So I don't know, maybe a Darwin Núñez, maybe somebody, Milner, anybody, but I would take him off him, because he's never going to say it himself. Players that are too proud, that their egos are too big to say, I'll step away from this. It needs to sort of happen. But look, if you have Mo Salah saying I fancy taking it, it's a big man that says no.
He didn't look confident last week when he was stepping.
No, he didn't. And like, to not even hit the target, I know he's trying to roll her into the corner, but to not hit the target, at least make the keeper save it. I think that's a manager and a coach's pet peeve, is at least it makes the goalkeeper save it. Don't hit it wide, and he rolled it just wide, and he's just trying to be too accurate, isn't he?
Yeah, does he need to change his technique? Because it was very similar to the Bournemouth miss. Yeah,
look, maybe I'm a little bit old school. I didn't take penalties myself. The mental side of it got to me before I even got the ball. So the run-ups to me, the Jorginho run-up when he jumps up, and Salah's little dance to the right and then goes up, I think run at the ball with all your pace and hit it, because otherwise you start messing around. I think you're giving the impetus back to the goalkeeper, and you need to keep your pace in the run-up. But look, I think there's a way to miss a penalty and a way to score a penalty, and if you miss the right way.
There's also ways to lose games and to win games as well. And Liverpool this season are just so frustrating. If you can have a 7-0 type performance a few weeks ago, then play terribly in the 2 or 3 games after that, then play really well against Arsenal, that makes no sense whatsoever with consistency, with the kind of tempo to their performances, which is sometimes lacking. And then the bigger games, they seem to be able to find it.
Yeah, and look, everybody knows when you're an elite player, you don't need to be motivated for the big games. The big games look after themselves. It's the ones like Leeds away. Are the Liverpool players going to go up for it? Because they've had so many big nights over the last couple of years that this maybe becomes a little bit more mundane for them. I know it's do or die for Leeds really, but can Liverpool raise their levels to what Leeds are going to be? Because Leeds are going to be so determined, so energetic, and it's up to Liverpool to match them. Now if Liverpool match their work rate of Leeds and they match the passion and the desire of Leeds, there's every chance Liverpool will get something, that talent will shine through. But I don't think Liverpool will match that desire. I think they look leggy at times. They've been able to raise it, especially at home with the Kop in full voice, but when they go away from home, the levels drop. They drop so much. In the final third, they haven't been able to put a pass together. At the back, they can't keep the ball out of the back of the net. Van Dijk's coming out saying he is tired, which is never a good sign. And do you take him out? Your number one centre half, probably the best centre half in the world. There's so many big calls. I think at the minute it's just gone a little bit stale at Liverpool, and Klopp needs a big revamp.
Speaking of, do you think Jurgen Klopp will continue in the Liverpool job?
I would have said yes from the outside looking in, but I'm looking at his press conferences and his body language, and he doesn't look like a happy man to me. And I don't expect him to look happy given how Liverpool are doing, but it looks a little bit deeper than that. Like he's took this Liverpool team as far as he can take them. And
but that's the question, does he have another great side in him at the club?
To be honest, I think that depends on finances. I think he might have another great Liverpool team in him, but he needs to go out and buy probably 2 or 3 players to add to what he has. Will he be given? And you have to think who else is in the market. So they're going to have to outbid the likes of a Manchester City, a Manchester United, a Tottenham, a Chelsea. Do Liverpool have the funds to do that? Not really. So they're shopping.
We were just thinking that during the week. It's like, so Enzo Fernandez goes for a huge amount of money to Chelsea. I'm sure Liverpool would have loved to have brought him in. Jude Bellingham, it appears, now whether it's a smokescreen or not, that they're now out of the race to sign him when they were long-term admirers. I'm not sure. Alexis McAllister will probably become available this summer. Brighton will sell maybe one of their best players, but they're going to want top dollar for him too. It's very, very difficult for Liverpool when Man City, Chelsea, maybe Arsenal now, if they win the title, will all be sniffing around these players with loads of money to spend. Yeah,
and this is what I mean. Over the last maybe 5 years, Liverpool have been one of the top dogs in and around European football. So the best talent, the best players are attracted to their people, are offering their players to Liverpool. Now Liverpool are shopping in a transfer market they're not used to. They're not quite at the top tier, although Liverpool, historically, they are at the top tier. I'm talking about now. The top players aren't going to want to go there. If Alexis McAllister at Brighton, if Liverpool knock on the door and Manchester City knock on the door, or even an Arsenal knock on the door, you're not going to Liverpool, are you?
No.
So in all fairness, I don't think you do, and I don't think they have the finances to go out and get the best players. So I think they're going to have to unearth a couple of diamonds, maybe bring one or two through from the academy. But
I wonder, just before we go on that one, will they regret the Nunez signing, where maybe they would have been better off to go a little bit short up front and get the midfielder last summer that they required, rather than bringing in another big striker?
Yeah, well look, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think we all knew they were hanging on for Jude Bellingham. When they were making signings in the summer, there was like, but Jude will become available and we'll get Jude, he'll be the centre midfielder. Obviously it looks like they're going to get priced out of that, but it's not just the centre midfield. Centre midfield is a big one. Even if they brought Jude Bellingham in there, he still needs a couple more with him. Do they regret the Darwin Nunez signing? I don't think so. I think Nunez will become a very good Liverpool player. The one thing, and I hate going back to it, it's the Mane, letting Mane go to Bayern Munich. I just don't understand it. I really don't.
Maybe he can come back in the cheap now after hitting Sané during the
yeah, possibly, maybe, yeah. You could get him out on loan, but to be fair, it just wasn't the move of an elite club in England. You know, we'll cash in for the 40 million. He's only a year left on his deal. Manchester City wouldn't have done that. Not if they had a player that wanted to stay in the building. They'd have kept him regardless of the finances, and I think that was just a red flare from Liverpool, and obviously it hasn't been great since.
Yeah, really good weekend of football ahead. You can catch all the action, of course, on Sky. The football kickoff is brought to you with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. We'll see you next Friday.
The football kickoff
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.